Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So every single NHL season, we see a couple guys that we think are way past their prime, basically revive their career. We think that they're going to be out of the league in like 2 to 3 years, and then they are back to almost the levels that they were at like 4 or 5 years ago. So I wanted to run through some of those guys that have kind of had these late career revivals. I'm going to be doing guys between the ages of like 29 and 34. So you're not going to see like a Brock Besser on this, because although he's definitely having a comeback, he's like 26 years old. Like this isn't like out of nowhere. We knew that he had the talent. These are guys that we fully saw the last year or two just nosedive almost, and now they are back to playing at a pretty high level. So without further ado, let's get into it. And for this, no goalies, because goalies are so sporadic. A guy like Petr Mrazek he revived his career this year, but for all we know, he could suck next year and nobody would be surprised. So this is only going to be skaters between the ages of like 29 and 35. First up, we got JVR. Now, JVR last year was in his final year of his massive contract, and he was playing so bad compared to his contract and stuff that nobody wanted to trade for him at the deadline. Everybody was mad. They were like, Chuck Fletcher, how did you not trade JVR? And Chuck Fletcher was like, nobody wanted him, and rightfully so, considering he only had 12 goals, 17 assists for 29 points in 61 games and was making like $7 million. So he had to take kind of that prove-it veteran contract to a contender, to the Boston Bruins, only making $1 million this year, and he has revived his career. He's playing much better. Right now, he has 9 goals, 25 assists for 34 points in 49 games, which is on pace for 57 points. So again, last year below half a point per game, on pace for like 38, 39 points. He has really transformed and revived his game, really has bought into that Boston Bruins system compared to previous years where he was in Philly just wandering aimlessly, just trying to kind of get his own in terms of points. He's bought into the system, fantastic middle six guy, playing Boston Bruins style of hockey and being a sneaky good passer this year, as well as a very good driver of offense. So JVR now next this offseason, I wouldn't be surprised if he got a 2 to 3 year deal around $2 to $3 million. He has been that good in my opinion and has a second lease on his NHL career because of it. Second, Gustav Nyquist. He was better than JVR last year. He had 27 points in 51 games. He was on Columbus, then he got traded, then he went to Minnesota, got hurt like almost instantly. So he wasn't as far gone, but he is also playing much better this season. Signed with the Nashville Predators for 2 years, $3.185 million to be kind of we were expecting just like a middle six play. We were expecting just around a 40-point guy on a Predators team that was kind of going younger. We did not expect him to seize his opportunity on that first line with Philip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly. And as a result, he has 40 points in 53 games and is playing 17-30 a night. He has arguably been the second best forward on the Nashville Predators, a Nashville Predators team that might potentially make the playoffs. This guy had been rotting away almost in Columbus the prior years on not that good of playoff teams, posting not that good of stats. And now he has formed quietly one of the best lines in all of hockey in terms of that Nashville Predators first line. This guy always had a ton of talent. Back in his prime was around a 55, 60-ish point guy, and he is flashing that yet again at 34 years old. It's not like that he's some 31-year-old that maybe has some game left in him. Well, he does have some game left in him, but that we thought maybe he could turn around. He was 34. We thought, oh, this might be his last stop in Nashville. Maybe after that, sign a 1-year deal or minimum value. No, it looks like, based on how he's playing at 34, I would not be surprised if he can play up until like 36, 37 at a pretty high level. He has been very impressive on that top line with the Nashville Predators. Third, Tyler Seguin. Tyler Seguin was better than the previous two prior, but coming off major hip surgery in 2020 and 2021, he kind of just regressed into this okay, mediocre, low-end second-line center, high-end third-line center, back-to-back seasons right around 50 points. We thought, yeah, he's one of the worst contracts in the entire league. He's getting paid like $9.8 million the next 3 seasons. It was a disaster. And while he's still definitely not worth $9.8 million, he's playing great this year. He moved over to wing with Matt Duchene coming in, and him, Duchene, and Marchment have formed probably the best second line in all of hockey, but it is arguably Dallas's first line this year in terms of how good they have been. He has 19 goals, 23 assists for 42 points in 53 games, which puts him on pace for 65 points. He just looks like a completely different player. It looks like he's finally fully healed from his hip surgery, has some mobility that he has prior, and as well as his shot is looking much better. The prior 2 seasons, he only shot around 11%. This year, he's shooting 16%. And mind you, this is a guy that has scored 40 goals in a season in the goddamn NHL. So he's yet and again a very good goal-scoring threat, as well well as an overall playmaker. And Dallas is such a good team in part because of Seguin elevating his game, where most of us thought he is what he is at this point. He's 32, 33 years old. You really can't expect much. No, he has fully turned it around. Fourth, Mel Granlund. Mel Granlund was horrible in Pittsburgh. He had 5 points in 21 games, making $5 million. So the Penguins had to ship him out as part of the Erik Karlsson trade. We thought he was just going to the island of misfit toys. He was done. He was going to rot away. Maybe get another contract after that for like league minimum, but that has not been the case. He is the Sharks' second best forward this year, which I know the Sharks aren't that good of a team, but he is playing 20 minutes in 35 seconds a night, just barely behind Tomas Hertl. And when looking at his point production, he has 29 points in 38 games. Granted, only 5 of those are goals. He's not exactly a sniper in general, but he is shooting at a very low rate. 14 of his assists out of his 24 assists are primary assists. And again, he is just looking like he did back in, not to the level that he was back in Minnesota, but he's a 70-point guy, but his playmaking has been so apparent now that he kind of doesn't have any pressure like he did maybe on a Pittsburgh to make the playoffs. He's just freewheeling. He's just having a good time out there. And without those pressures of having that high cap hit, they expect all this production out of you. He's been very good. He's playing with absolutely nothing to lose. And honestly, he's playing so good with 29 points in 38 games right now that it's not going to happen at this year's deadline considering he has another year. But this summer, he could potentially get moved. And at next year's deadline, I think at half retained, he probably will get moved. When you were looking at when this deal happened, you thought no way anybody would ever eventually be interested in Granlund at that $5 million cap hit. But with the way he's playing, how good he has been playing, over 60-point pace this season, they maybe could flip him down the line for assets. If you told me that when that happened, I'd say you're absolutely lying. He is beyond cooked, but he has been playing very good. And even analytically, he was horrendous analytically last year. No offense, no defense. This year, offense is just much, much better. It's actually in the top like 40, 30% in the NHL. He has been very impressive on a team that has been pretty utter shit. Fifth, Alex Kerfoot. He was kind of the whipping boy in Toronto. Only had 32 points in 82 games. He's 29 or 30 years old. People thought he was just going to Arizona. They were trying to get to the salary cap floor. He was basically going to rot away for 2 years on okay to decent Arizona teams, then just basically be gone in the wind. But that has not been the case. He obviously signed for 2 years, $3.5 million. And he's been very solid. He's been playing a much more increased role on the Arizona Coyotes, playing 17 minutes, 43 seconds a night. That's over 3 minutes more than he was on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he's producing at a decent rate, 30 points in 51 games, which is 48-point pace. So going forward, I think that he is a pretty solid two-way second liner. I know the Coyotes like throw their lines out of whack. Like I think right now he actually is on the fourth line. You got like Logan Cooley on the third line. Like they flip-flop so much, but considering you're able to play him in most situations out there, he has proven that he is a very good middle six guy. And it was clear just in Toronto it wasn't a fit, especially him on that third line with pretty horrendous bottom six wingers and players to play with. He still has some game left in him. And if you're the Arizona Coyotes at $3.5 million, a guy that gives you around a 50-point pace as well as solid, pretty decent two-way play, that is looking like a very good deal for them. And if they don't make the playoffs next year, they could honestly trade him for like a second-round pick at the deadline, half retained. Sixth up on the list is Jonathan Drouin. Obviously, he was horrendous last year in Montreal in terms of a goal-scoring perspective. He had 2 goals in 52 games with Montreal Canadiens. He did have a bunch of assists, but it got so bad that they basically just parted ways. They're like, we don't really want to sign you. There's see you later, Jonathan Drouin. And as a result, he had to sign with the Colorado Avalanche. And yes, I know he's playing with Nathan MacKinnon. I know Nathan MacKinnon makes every winger that he plays with look a lot better. But I think genuinely when you watch Drouin, considering he has that connection with Nathan MacKinnon from back in their days in the QMJHL, I think he's far exceeded expectations. And especially of late, you look at him in his last 25 games, the dude has 7 goals, 15 assists for 22 points. So yes, he is playing, getting a very good opportunity. But you've seen time and time again, wingers play with McDavid and not make it work. Wingers play on that top line with Marner and Matthews and fumble the bag. So there is something to Jonathan Drouin's play that we thought that he was kind of cooked for the most part, only at like 28, 29 years old. But I think after this season, he's probably going to sign a decent deal with another team. Not like his deal with the Montreal Canadiens, which was like a 5x5 or something. But he could definitely end up signing a 3-year deal worth $3 million with the team, considering how good he is playing and showing that he, while not a star in his own right, can fit with other stars. And he's definitely doing that this year with the Colorado Avalanche. Next up, Alzner Larson with the Florida Panthers. The last 2 seasons, he had 29 points in 79 games. Then last year, 22 points in 54 games. Was an objectively bad defenseman, and it was only amplified because his contract was so horrendous. Now this year, he comes into Florida on a 1-year, $2.25 million contract, and they needed him to step up because they didn't have Montour or Ekblad for the first month and a half of the season. So they decided to bring in a guy like OEL that has been able to carry a load as a number 1 defenseman. So even though he is 34 years old, he did exactly that. He had 5 goals, 6 assists, 11 points in 17 games to start the season. He was playing 23 minutes and 30 seconds a night. He was basically their number 1 defenseman. And as a result of his solid play, Florida was not even just able to stay afloat. They were able to be safely in a playoff position by the time Montour and Ekblad got back. He now is kind of just in a third pair role, but I think he's learned from the prior years of poor play. He can thrive in a third pair role. The previous 2 years, he was still playing a decent second pair, kind of even top pair role, but in this third pair role where he's not relied on to do too much, he can just play responsible hockey, still be a solid mover of the puck. Alzner Larson is proving that he can be an effective bottom pair guy, and I think he's probably going to sign another 1 year, around $2.5 million contract, and just continue to do that for the next couple of years based on how good he has been this year. Versus if he did not have a good season this year, there's a decent chance that he would have been out of the league. So he really revived his career. And lastly, I have Anthony Mantha. This guy, the future was his. He had the future. I don't know what I'm trying to say. He had a ton of potential when back in 2019, 2020, he had 38 points in 43 games in that season. He was 25 years old. It looked like he was going to be a very good first liner for the next 5 years. Obviously, COVID happens, then gets traded to the Washington Capitals, has 23 points in 37 games, gets hurt with the Capitals. We think, okay, not the best, but when he's healthy, he's going to be better. Then last year, he has a brutal 27 points in 61 games. Just not good. The Verana for a Mantha trade has been an absolute disaster up until this point. But this year, he comes out in a contract expiring year and has looked far better. 16 goals, 10 assists for 26 points in 48 games, which is 27 goals, 17 assists, 44-point pace on the season if he did play all 82 games. So when looking at it, he has really but he has really turned it around in terms of being yet again a solid goal-scoring threat as a second liner. If he didn't have this revival this season, he was probably going to have to sign some league minimum deal similar to a JVR and Drouin that I mentioned before. So when looking at him, I think now with the way he's playing, he's probably a solid second liner going forward. He's not wowing anybody, but he's been able to play a solid role on the Washington Capitals this season. And while he's probably never going to be the 38 and 43 guy again, it would not surprise me if a team scoops him and he can consistently be a 45-ish point scorer going forward. Solid second liner, very good third liner. So those are my guys. We got JVR, we got Nyquist, we got Seguin, Granlund, Kerfoot, Drouin, OEL, and Mantha. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? And who are some other guys that you think have had these late career revivals? And I'll be seeing the next one.